Welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Dr. Lucy. I'm a clinical psychologist, and my YouTube channel is mainly addressing the intersection between the psychology and the modern psychological tools and the principles and teachings that we gain from Islam. So, one of the things that I wanted to talk about in this video was the importance of us recognizing and understanding the importance of the different various human emotions that we experience, and the importance of us giving space and being able to express and work through really difficult emotions. Now, the reason why I'm addressing this is because one of the things that I noticed over the 27 years that I've been Muslim is a repetitive theme that I've seen come up over and over and again in different parts of the community of shaming and minimizing people's emotional distress. And I'd see this come up so many times in lectures and talks. And so many times I'd often hear, and in the community, people say things like, well, you shouldn't be sad because if you have strong iman, if you have strong reliance on Allah, then you won't be sad. Or you shouldn't have anxiety, or you shouldn't have fears, because if you just have trust in Allah, then you won't ever be anxious. And whilst there is part of that there's some truth to it, that having strong faith, having trust in Allah as our protector and our helper does absolutely give us a sense of peace and comfort. At the same time, it never sat well with me, because there was a part of me that would always think, but this feels very shaming for a person who's is having a valid emotional response to a difficult situation, that they may be feeling incredibly anxious because of the things they've experienced in their lives, or they might be feeling really incredibly sad because the things that they're going through, or they might be dealing with really uncomfortable feelings of anger and resentment that may well be really valid because of the situation that they're going through. And it was something that I used to reflect on and think about. And then when I started working as a psychologist and looking into the way that we process difficult experiences, and really seeing that in order to heal and grow from difficult times in our lives, that suppressing our feelings and just saying no, I'm not going to allow myself to feel sad, or I'm not going to acknowledge that I feel anxious, I would only see that resulting in negative outcomes for people. And psychological research shows that as well, that when people suppress their emotions, it actually results in a whole range of negative outcomes for the individual. And then when I would reflect then also on the stories and from the descriptions that we have in the Quran, and I would look at these examples over and over again of righteous men and women who are going through, or we describe their experiences of intense distress and difficulty, and them expressing that intense distress and that intense sadness or anger or grief. And I would think to myself, how is it that as a community there are so many places that I'm seeing this pattern coming up of really shaming people for having for expressing their emotions, of people saying no, well, if you've got strong faith, then you won't be feeling upset, that you'll feel happy all the time. And I remember once in working at an Islamic organization in the past, and someone saying, well, if you have strong iman, you'll be happy all the time. And I was thinking, but that's not what we see from the examples of the Quran. What we see in actual fact in the example of Quran is righteous men and women who are, we're given an insight into really difficult times and their responses of intense distress, and how then that they've navigated and worked through that. And there are so many examples that I could give, but some of the examples that really speak to me are the example of Prophet Yaqub alayhi salam, that he loved his son Yusuf so much, and when he lost Yusuf, and if you know the story, that Yusuf's brothers were jealous and that they took him and pretended that he was taken by a wolf, and they went back to their father Yaqub and told him that Yusuf is no longer with us. what we have is that Yaqub alayhi salam was so devastated, and that grief that he expressed went on for years, that he grieved for the loss of Yusuf, and he cried to the point that he went blind. And this was never, there is no association with, or any indication that's a reflection of his weak iman. If anything, it's the opposite. That we see that Yaqub is a prophet. He had unwavering devotion to Allah and trust in Allah. And yet, when we see, in this day and age, when we see men cry, what's often the response? Oh, that's being weak, or men shouldn't cry, or men should show that they're strong. Yet we have this example of a righteous prophet, a guided, righteous prophet who was weeping and weeping and weeping till he lost his eyesight. Another example is the mother of Isa, Maryam alayhi salam, who is held up in all monotheistic religions as a righteous woman, and that she's known throughout the centuries as a righteous woman. And when she was pregnant and she was giving birth, and she in the Quran it describes that she left her town and she was on her own in labor, knowing that when she returns back to her town as an unmarried woman with a baby, that people were going to shame her and question her and say terrible things about her. The description in the Quran of her intense distress, and that she called out, she said, would if only I had died before this and been long forgotten. So in essence saying, I wish if I just was disappeared and off the face of the earth. Those are the words of someone who is experiencing intense distress. I could go on and on with so many different examples, but my last example will be of our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We have many accounts of him being incredibly distressed with different situations. Sadness when his wife Khadija radiallahu anha had passed away. Intense anger when people would do things that were wrong. The pain and grief when loved ones died. Him feeling, the frustration of people around him, who betrayed him, or people who were enemies. So again, we don't have that. This expression of emotion is linked with weakness or lack of iman. If anything, what this shows us is an example of the humanness of these righteous men and women, of these prophets who came were entrusted and given that status just to call people to worship one God. So to me, I see that as a comfort. I see that as that shows the humanness of the way that we are created, that when we go through difficult times, it is normal and natural for us to feel intense emotions and to express them. But then what we have in these examples is, then what do we do from there? We don't necessarily then, give up or despair or allow our emotions to completely take over, and for us to just be driven purely by our emotions. Yes, we have to recognize and express and to feel those emotions, but then what? We always have in each of these examples in the Quran of then doing something, of not just sitting still, but whatever we can to take a step, to keep taking a step forward, to hold on to that faith and that reminder that Allah hasn't rejected or forgotten us through difficult times. In fact, Allah's there, and that Allah will be there to take us through that and bring us to something better at the end of it. One of the beautiful things that I love about the story of Maryam, particularly speaks to me as a woman, going through that intense distress and a time when she felt very isolated, very rejected by her community. The order from Allah was to Maryam at that time to shake the date palm tree, because Allah then gave her the dates, this special date, ratab, which is a juicy date to nourish her. But the interesting thing about that is that order shake the date palm, for Mariam to shake the date palm tree, is that you can't shake a date palm tree. If you look at date palms, they're massive. They're massive. You can't, nobody can shake it like you would a tree that's, or a bush or a shrub that's smaller that you can move. You can't shake it. So what does that tell us? What does that tell us? It tells us that just to do something, to take a step forward, and it might feel like it's not much. So it might be that that small step forward is to just get out of bed, you know, keep holding on to the prayers, keep moving forward, keep holding on to faith, even though you might be going through a really difficult time, and keep trusting that on the other side of that, that Allah is going to catch us, that Allah is going to open up doors for us, that we don't go through difficulties as necessarily as just to make our lives worse or to make it hard for us, but because it's going to open up something better for us on the other side, inshallah. And one of the beautiful things that I see when I'm working with my clients is that when they can start to get in touch with their emotions, and we can start to work through them in healthy ways, and we can start to allow them to see that those emotions are coming up for a reason, that in order for a person, for example, to move through a situation that's causing them a lot of pain and distress, that they may need to feel that grief. They may need to allow themselves to cry and not feel like they're weak, or that they're, you know, that they're not a good Muslim, but allow themselves to cry and to recognize that's part of the letting go process. Or if a person is experiencing resentment or frustration in their life, that's a message for them, that perhaps that there's something in their life that needs to change, that maybe there's something where they need to take with courage a step forward and change something that might be harmful for them in some way. Or if a person's got anxieties, that rather than again shaming the person for, you know, calling them weak for having anxieties, to try to get to the root and to the core of what is it that's causing those anxieties. And again, rather than seeing it as a weakness, seeing it as a message that this is something that they need to unpack and work through. And the beautiful thing that I see in my work is when I'm working with clients and they're able to recognize that the emotions that are coming up are not a sign of their weakness, but a sign that it's something to be curious about, that it's something to work through. And when they can start to do that, it's so wonderful to see how people then are able to move past these difficult experiences. They can start to take the lessons, and I can see the growth, and then see them move on in their lives to bigger and better things. And that's ultimately what I believe this journey is about, that we don't go through hardships except that they make us stronger, that maybe it's to move us away from things that are not good for us and move us towards a better path for ourselves. I hope that this video was helpful. Thank you so much for your time and attention. And until the next video, I wish you all the love and light and peace in your life. Have a wonderful day.